Good evening, everybody. Welcome again to one of our conversations here coming from Knox Shrine. And it gives me great pleasure tonight to be joined by three of my former students. That's because two of them are still involved with us in doing postgraduate courses. And I'll invite them to introduce themselves in a moment. But we've got Tom Carroll, we've got Cian O'Brien, and we've got Sarah O'Keefe. And it's wonderful to have you with us this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Emma.
So, Tom, will you begin there by introducing yourself, telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so thanks, Eamon. So Tom Carroll is my name, and judging, as you can guess from my accent, I am from Cork. I would be a primary school teacher in Scoilnahartygue in Carriganar in County Cork. It would be a large rural school, about 350 pupils. And as Eamon was saying, I'm in my final year as a PhD student in Mary Immaculate College studying an aspect of Catholic education and mindfulness. So I'm on career break this year, and I'll be returning hopefully to the classroom in September back to my smallies. I've been teaching since 2014, predominantly in special education, so everything from junior infants to 6th class.
Wonderful, and you also lecture part-time with us in Mary Immaculate, and we're very grateful for that, and it's a great contribution to our current students. Cian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Cian O'Brien. I'm from a small little village called Mungret outside Limerick. I graduated in 2018 from Mary I with a Bachelor of Education and a specialism in religion and theology. I've been teaching in the Convent of Mercy in Newport, County Tipperary for the last 3 years. I taught senior infants on my first year out. I taught first class the second year, and I'm back into seniors again. So yeah, that's it for me. I started a new course as well, as Eamon mentioned already. It's a certificate in Christian leadership and education, so that runs until May. So that's an interesting course as well, and I always wanted to start the further study ever since completing the religious route in college. I always thought I'd go back to it, so that was the reasoning for going back to college.
Yeah, and this year is the first time we've offered it online, and I think we've over 20, maybe 23 or 24 doing it from all over the country, so it's tremendous indeed. Sarah, it's great to have you with us this evening. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Eamon. My name is Sarah. I come from a family of 6, and I'm from a small village in North Kerry called Brusna. I studied primary teaching and psychology in Mary Immaculate College, and I also graduated like Cian in 2018. Since then, I taught for 2 years in St. Columkille's Senior National School in Knockline in County Dublin, having third class in that school, and I currently am living at home and working in Monagay National School in County Limerick, and I'm blessed to have junior infants this year.
Well, that's tremendous. Now, why I suppose we're talking tonight is because you are all people who are very open about the fact that you are committed to your Catholic faith. And I think it's good for people to know that there are teachers out there who are quite open, quite interested and committed about their faith. Again, like the students we had last week, not in any kind of a, if you like, overtly pious kind of way, but just in a mature, ordinary way. And it's interesting, I think, for our audience tonight to know what's that like to live that in the context of your schools, in the classroom, and indeed in the staff room. So what is it like to teach religion, to speak about faith today in a primary school? And you're all in Catholic primary schools, as it happens, I think. So what's it like to do that at the moment? What's it like to be open about being a committed Catholic in a Catholic primary school today? We'll start with you, Tom.
Well, I suppose for me, it's no secret in my school that, I've been doing further studies in theology. I'm involved in my parish and my diocese in various activities. And I suppose as a teacher, for me, that means just every day going in and demonstrating what it is to be a Christian and how I behave towards others, how I model myself towards the children and towards activities and so forth. And I suppose, it isn't about me wearing a placard saying I am a Catholic and so forth. It's more just about the way you relate to people, the way you teach, in the sense of, for the children, when it comes to, let's say, religious education, being open to questions, allowing them to be curious and to ask questions about what has this got to do with about being Catholic or God or Jesus, allowing them that space to ask questions. Children are curious by their nature, and it just very much means allowing them to express themselves and to ask questions, I would say, would be a big part of it for me.
Great. Cian.
Yeah, I suppose from the school point of view, I know the rest of the staff are great. They know that I have a strong faith, and there's nearly awe on their part, like they're nearly envious of the fact that I have a strong faith, and they're very inquisitive about it, and they love asking questions. And I think we know now that it's outside of the norm for a 25-year-old to go to mass and to be a practicing Catholic. So there's nearly a sort of a novelty in that sense. They love finding out about it. And from the community, like Tom said, it's no secret. I'm well known for having a strong faith in the community. And while some people might say it must be difficult, I think I enjoy being a shepherd rather than a sheep. You know, I like to do my own thing. I wouldn't change my faith just because it's not seen to be cool or anything like that. I've confidence in my own faith. So yeah, no, I think it is challenging times that we are in a minority, but there is strength in numbers, and knowing that there is other people out there of our age that have a strong faith.
And Sarah?
Religion in school, I find I really enjoy teaching it, and just like any other subject, I think when you're enthusiastic about a subject and teaching religion and you make it known to the children that this is of genuine interest to you and that it is something that helps you out in your own personal life as well, and that it can be used every day, then I feel that this really helps and it reflects on the children. I know that prayer time in my class is an integral part of our school day. And as we all know, children like to remind us that it's lunchtime and, oh, it's PE time, Miss O'Keefe, don't forget. But when I try to integrate religion and prayer time into our daily routine, it is really heartwarming to hear that maybe the first 30 minutes of the day have passed and you might have forgot to start off the day with a prayer, and there will always be some child reminding you that, oh, Miss O'Keefe, we forgot to say our prayers this morning. And I just feel, knowing that, it shows that it is an important part of the day for them also, because they wouldn't be reminding me if it was something that they didn't enjoy or like participating in. And then in relation to speaking about my faith within the school environment, it is something that I feel comfortable with. I think while I acknowledge that the person sitting beside me might not necessarily have the same level of faith or the same opinions and attitudes and beliefs that I have, there has always been that sense of a mutual understanding and a respect. And I think that is just key to discussing faith and discussing anything in school and life in general.
Has it ever caused you any trouble or any pain or any discomfort in your school context? Any of you? Has it ever been caused an awkwardness in the staff room or in the school as such? Has it ever, anything like that ever arisen?
It hasn't personally for me, I suppose. Like, we're lucky in our school, the staff generally are really, they're a great group of people and we get on very well for such a large staff. I have friends though, and who maybe have come across that in the staff room, where there's almost a generalisation where almost to be a practicing Catholic now is to be in some way complicit with some of the scandals and the abuses of the past, that to be a part of the church now is to be some way connected to the past. And I know for them it's been a challenge sometimes, because they mightn't have the confidence or just, the answer straight away to be able to say that, my experience of church wasn't that. We can accept and we can look back and see what's gone on in the past and what's the horrors that have been there. But like for myself, that's never been my experience of church. I've been lucky to be part of a community of faith that was never an issue. That was never something that came up. We treat each other with respect, with kindness, with gentleness. And I suppose what I've always said to my friends when they've spoken to me about it is, all we can do is model that. We show that every day when we go into work, that, those kind of those comments, they're not what we reflect, and they're not part of our faith. It's alien to our faith almost.
I suppose it just raises the question, have any of these kind of scandals, the disappointments, the hurts, the horrors really at times of what has been associated with the institutional church, have they shook your own faith? Any of you? Have they caused you to have any kind of doubts about your own faith or your own relationship with God? Sarah?
I suppose just like every institution, all institutions are open to failings, and unfortunately, and to all of our disappointment, the Catholic Church is no different. However, for me personally, I always just try to separate these failings from my own relationship with God, and I try not to let these failings taint my relationship with the church and my relationship with God. Also, as to date, all of my experiences have been positive, really positive and enriching in my own life. So that's what I try to focus on.
I suppose, I have to be honest and tell you, I've had doubts about God, at times, particularly times of deep suffering in my life. at times of disappointment. And they've always turned out to be moments of growth, you know. They haven't been, again, through the grace of God, they haven't been moments that have crushed me. But I'm just interested, have you gone through any of those kind of moments yourselves? I mean, Cian, you talked about how strong your faith is, but could it be because at times your faith was weak and you came through it? Have you had any moments like that you can identify with?
100%, yeah. And I think as a teacher, we're encountering those moments a lot more. I know in my school that I've encountered kids that come from disadvantaged backgrounds and from tough circumstances, and you'd wonder, where is God in their lives, you know? But then my reminder then of God, that he is around, is that the presence of a teacher. Now, I'm not comparing myself to God, but that while they do come from very tough circumstances, that I can be a positive role model in their lives. So like that, while my faith has been tested, my strength, my confidence and strength in my own faith has reminded myself that God is there for us.
It's an interesting point you made, and I'm just conscious we have 2 male teachers and 1 female teacher. Like, the majority of primary teachers are female, wouldn't that be correct?
Correct, yeah.
Overwhelmingly so. And it's interesting that Francis in particular has picked up on how important it is for young people, and males, boys in particular, to have male role models. He has picked up on that hugely. And, you know, Karl Rahner, one of my favorite theologians, has talked about how in childhood, if you're missing a positive father figure, this can impact very profoundly negatively on your understanding of God as a father, or indeed as a mother, but as a kind of a positive parenting. So you're picking up a bit on that, Cian, that do you find yourself being called to be kind of a father figure for many kids in school, that you know, as you encounter them now?
100%, yes. And I have had lots of boys and girls in my class in the last few years who don't have a father figure in their life. So as a male primary school teacher, you're going to be the primary male role model in their lives. So it's a massive responsibility, but that's what I love about the job as well. And I've realized that teaching for the last few years, that as teachers, not just male or female, but as teachers, we do have a massive responsibility, because we don't know what homes kids are coming from in the morning, and school can be their release, you know, and they can be coming from very tough circumstances and they can't wait to get into school. And it's nice then to be the facilitator, to be that person that the kids are looking forward to seeing because they need a break from their home. So I think it's a massive responsibility.
Yeah. Would you say the same, Sarah, in your case? Do you find as a female teacher that you're called upon to be a kind of a substitute mother figure at times?
Well, certainly, I suppose, as a teacher and as teachers as a whole, we try our best that every day when they come in, that you're creating a safe environment where they feel willing to ask questions and comfortable in your presence. And I really feel that over the last 3 years, I have put a lot of work. The schools that I worked in have placed a big emphasis on restorative practice, because I think this places an emphasis on fairness, respect, inclusiveness in our classroom. So no matter where our children are coming from or what homes, you are always trying your best to create this atmosphere and environment in the classroom that you feel that will benefit the children and that they are comfortable, because the children might forget what you have taught them, but they're never going to forget how you made them feel. And I think that lies at the heart of all of our classrooms.
Yeah, and I look back at my own time in school, you know, go back to primary school is nearly 50 years for me. Oh, sorry, is 50 years for me. God. But anyway, the teachers I remember, I don't remember what they taught me, but I remember how they respected me and engaged with me. And, you know, what really gets on my nerves, okay, in pedagogy, in education faculties, and I'm going to come to you on this one, Tom, because you're the guy who's nearly got your PhD now, is the question about, you know, you're expected as teachers very often to leave yourself outside the classroom. This idea that you're going to teach facts objectively, you know? I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it? You teach who you are.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always a famous quote I'm drawn to that there's no such thing as a view from nowhere. We all look at the world in a certain way. We can look at it in different ways, but we all look at the world in a certain way. And education can't be neutral. It's centered on a person and how we're able to communicate to a person. And I suppose it comes to a deeper question for teachers: what's our purpose? Is our purpose just to transmit facts for a marketplace, or is it to develop humans to be citizens who can contribute to the common good? And it's a deep question we have to ask ourselves as teachers and as policymakers. What do we see education as for? Is it for training, for skills practice, or is it to create people who can make genuine contribution to the world? It can be very frustrating when you come across documentation or publications which put out this view of education as neutral or as narrow, because education isn't that. Once it becomes that, it's no longer education for me. It's meant to be a development of the human person.
One of the ways I define ethos, which is a kind of a difficult enough concept, but we talk about, for example, the Catholic ethos of a school, is what you teach while you're teaching. You know, you're actually communicating something while you're teaching. And I had an aunt who maybe some of our audience cousin, some of our audience may remember, Sister Assumpta Flannery from Ballyhaunis, which is just down the road from Knock. She was a first cousin of my mother's, a maths teacher, brilliant maths teacher. But I remember at her funeral, which I had the privilege of doing, so many generations actually coming up and saying, she got me through the Leaving Cert, she got me over got me to my exams, but more importantly, she got me to believe in myself. You know, she helped me to know that I was a valuable person and so on. That's what she taught while she was teaching the maths. You know, and I think it's the gift of. I mean, I presume you guys see teaching as a vocation, do you?
100%. Yeah, it's a job that you have to love. And the day that you're dreading going into your class is the day that you're finished and you need to go elsewhere. 100%. I think what's really important is that recognising the uniqueness of every single child. And while a child might necessarily score well in their maths and their English test, they have other skills that they can contribute. But unfortunately, I don't think at the moment, as a system, we're doing enough for them. We're kind of casting them to the side straight away, and we need to be doing more for those kids, because just because they're not scoring well in such tests, they have other attributes that they do bring to the table. But we need to make more of an effort to recognise that.
Do you think that Catholic schools should stand for something different than within the wider system? That for example, this issue of maybe attention to the most vulnerable or the fragile. Sarah, do you think that's something that you'd like to see Catholic schools, for example, be known for in a way maybe that would be an important development in the context at the moment?
Certainly catering for children of all needs and all abilities comes first and foremost. So I feel that in my past experience in the two schools that I have taught in, there has been great work going on to make sure that all these children feel included and that they can reach their full potential. And just to, I suppose, reinforce this among the children, you're building their confidence every day when they come into you. You're focusing on the strengths that they actually have. And of course, everybody has weaknesses. And I suppose just developing in Catholic schools, developing the idea that different but not less. We are all different, but being different doesn't mean that we're any bit less. And I think that lies at the heart of the Catholic ethos of schools.
Now, some people listening to us tonight might say, this is all very well. You know, the Catholic primary school is the only school in our locality, and it has to cater for either those who don't belong to the Catholic faith or who, so maybe are Muslim or whatever, or those who were baptized Catholic and so on, but aren't really interested in, they're going there because it's the only primary school in the locality. How do you cater for, say for example, if you've had a Muslim or Muslims in your class, or those of another Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever, how do you deal with that? Cian, have you had that experience in Newport or elsewhere?
Yeah, I've had children in my class over the last couple of years who come from a different faith. I had one family in particular, they were a Muslim family. And I suppose the first things first is that you have to reassure the family that they won't be, the child will have their own time while we're doing religion, that they can work on their own faith and they can bring in their own books to learn about their own religion, and they can use to practice Arabic. But as well as that, to make him feel included, we had a week in school whereby he got to tell us all about his faith. So rather than him sitting there hearing us talking about our faith all the time, he got the opportunity to showcase his faith, and he was delighted. It was really exciting for him. So it's about making them feel welcome as well, and not kind of dodging the question or avoiding the kind of awkward conversation. That you have to have the conversation that, look, your child is as welcome as any child. So it's about putting their minds at ease, more or less.
And I imagine it's an enrichment as well for children of different faith perspectives to hear about and learn about the faiths of others. Have you had that experience as well, Tom?
Absolutely. I think it's a real gift to be able to be, as a teacher in that sense, almost a facilitator for conversation. And it's about getting the children to see someone who is different to them in some way, but as valued as them, as unique as them, and that they share so much. They share so much, and it's great to have those conversations. I suppose what I've always tried to do in that circumstance is, as a teacher across the board, is trying to inculcate two key things for all of the kids in my class, irrespective of their faith background. And the first is to be kind, because literally, it's Christ's teaching anyway, to treat others as you would treat yourself. But just to put kindness out there, because it is such a wonderful gift that we can give to each other. And second, just to have an openness to mystery. Just to have an idea that the world is deeper and more wonderful and more awe-inspiring than at first glance, to take a deeper look at it. And in that sense, it's wonderful to have those children who are able to talk to each other with wide eyes, with interest, with curiosity. I remember going back a few years now, teaching in a large urban girls' school. It was a Catholic school, and I was sixth class. There was a girl in the class, a practicing Muslim, and I suppose I would know a relatively large amount of about Islamic faith and whatnot. So while we were having the conversation, we were talking about art, and the children were going to be doing a piece of art revolving around God, which I made the point that, now you can do something with us if you want for your own picture, but I appreciate that you might want to draw anything such as God or so forth. And it was an opportunity for her to talk about her faith and explain to the children why this is the view that her faith takes. And there was no animosity, no kind of interrupting. It was just lovely to facilitate an open conversation where they learned about each other in a civil and welcoming and open manner.
It's interesting.
It's a gift to be able to do that.
The research shows that, the more you are committed to your own faith, the more respectful you are of other people's faith. I think a lot of people think that if you want to respect other people's faith, you have to play down your own and kind of a one-size-fits-all. But that's not actually what the research shows. It shows the more you are understanding and knowledgeable and committed to your own faith, actually the more you will respect it. Just like I imagine Cian, as we know, is a keen hurler. The more proficient you are in one sport, the more appreciative you'll be of the effort that's involved in playing a different sport. It won't be your sport. You may never, as a hurler, you may never want to touch a cricket bat, but when you watch a cricket game, you'll know what it is to become an expert cricketer, and you'll know the effort, and you'll respect that, and you'll admire that. And I think it's much the same in terms of religious education as well, So that's very interesting. While we're on this kind of a thing, your schools are all under Catholic patrons, okay, Catholic ownership and management. If you were to get 3 minutes or 3 seconds even with your school patron or one-to-one, what would you want to say to your patron, the person in charge of your school? If you could speak freely, they say to you, speak freely, tell me whatever you want to say. What would you want to say to them? Just a few thoughts. Tom, we'll start off with you.
I suppose if I could get 2 things across in those 3 minutes. Number one, on a practical level, to look at, if possible at all, trying to bring in some form of continuous professional development for teachers with regards to Catholic ethos. Because we can do all we can as Catholic teachers, but there's a responsibility there to ensure that the Catholic ethos can flourish in a school by providing opportunities for continuous development for teachers in that aspect, because it's a vital aspect of the school life. I suppose second thing I would say to them, first of all, we appreciate your job as administrators of a diocese, absolutely. But you're also pastors. You're also leaders of your flock, your shepherds. So in that sense, be visible. Let the schools see you, that you're there for them. We know that you're there, just be more visible about it. It would make such a difference. Even if it seemed very small, it could make a huge difference, I would think.
Just ask, are you saying that there isn't very much or indeed any continuous professional development for teachers from a Catholic faith perspective at the moment, or whatever is there is insufficient anyway in your experience?
Yeah, at the primary level it's negligible. It's some, and again, it just seems such an obvious and simple thing that could be done that would just nourish so many teachers' professional development in that regard.
Certainly, my experience is that when people have these opportunities, they grab them with both hands. You know, that there's provided they're obviously freed up and resourced to avail of them. You know, very good, Sarah. You're getting 2 minutes with your school patron. What would you like to say to him?
I suppose just that I know from over the lockdown that our diocese has provided us with daily or lesson plans that will help us to teach religion remotely, and I feel that this is fantastic and I've gotten great use out of it, and I feel that this is excellent, and I would encourage them to keep doing what they're doing if we were to encounter another lockdown experience, because certainly when a weekly plan is in front of you, when it is clearly there and when it is accessible and sent in an email to the teacher, it is very hard to then look at it and it's ready made in front of you and say, no, I won't do it. It's like, oh, this is brilliant. That is religion sorted. I'm going to use it. So I would encourage, keep doing that and keep supporting the teaching of religious education in our schools, because it certainly is so beneficial and enriching for all pupils and for the teachers also.
Very good. Cian.
Yeah, I'd be thinking along the same lines as Tom. Straightforward enough, just to be more visible and just to make your presence known. I think I know pre-COVID times that the confirmation is a massive day in any child's life, and there's fierce excitement that the bishop is there. But in a way, it should be a case that they're familiar with him, that they've met him a couple of times throughout the school year. So yeah, just to be more visible, and it's among staff as well as the kids.
Well, no, you just raised an interesting question. You know, there's a certain talk, even within church circles, that we'd be much better off taking confirmation and First Communion out of the primary schools. A quick word from each of you on that. Do you think that would be a good idea or not, Cian?
Difficult question, Eamon. I think that there will be pros and cons. I think that the everyday running of a parish is a big job in itself. So if you put the communion and the sacraments on them, I think it would add a massive workload. And I think that teachers do go to train in college for a reason. You know, like they have studied. Now I know while religion mightn't be to the forefront, we have to trust that they got their degree and that they are capable of teaching religious education.
Okay, so on balance, you think it should be left in the schools?
I think so, but maybe with more of an emphasis on it, and that teachers have to be maybe a small bit more accountable on their instruction, and encourage maybe a link with the parish. I wouldn't give all the responsibility to the parish, but maybe more of a link between the two parties.
Yeah. Sarah?
I'd also definitely keep this within the school also, while making the emphasis on the parents and their home communities, their parish communities and their school communities. I think it is a fantastic thing to work with the children when they are making the sacraments and preparing them, and just seeing the children grow as they are preparing for the sacrament. So this is fabulous that they can experience this together as a class and in their school, and it is something that I will never forget. My communion day and my confirmation day, and the people that I made my communion and confirmation with. And I think in school we can help to support them in preparing for their sacraments, while also including the parish, which is central to their faith formation, as well as the home, who are the primary educators of the children.
Okay, very, very good. And I think you raised an important point. We probably won't go there now, but I've come across this so often about parents needing support, in a sense, to support their children in their faith. And I think there's probably an awful lot more we could do in that regard as well. I've often come across parents who are almost afraid to go into the school for a religious service or a ceremony. It's just so alien to them, and so it's kind of a step too far. They feel more comfortable just to drop the kids off and pick them up, but to actually participate, they need to be invited in, I think, more and so on. Tom, where do you stand on this issue of the sacraments in the school?
I suppose, touching what Sarah said in terms of the partnership, I'm aware that some dioceses have looked at taking the sacraments out. I suppose my view would be that it's fine to take them out, provided that the parish structures are in place in partnership with the parents to support that. In the sense of, if you're going to do sacramental preparation out of school, then there needs to be a parish structure, be it catechesis, be it teacher or lay volunteers trained to do that in partnership with the parents. The parents are the primary educators of the children. And I know sometimes it can be given too much to the teachers in terms of sacramental preparation. If they are to be taken out, there needs to be a viable alternative there in terms of catechists, in terms of parish structures, and full buy-in from parents as well. Because at the end of the day, it's their child receiving a sacrament.
I think it's also very interesting that each of you in your own way are connected very much with your own communities, with your own parish communities. Just stay with you for a moment, Tom. You're very involved in the Samaritans. Just say a little bit of a word about that and what that's been like, particularly over the last few months. I imagine it has been particularly challenging time.
Yeah, so the Samaritans would be it's been a long-running mental health charity which focuses on emotional support for people in distress or in despair. And I suppose I'm with them 2 years, and there are just 20 branches in Ireland now. And the key aspect is that we're 24/7. We go through every day, every night, 365 days of the year. And I would say that, like, just from my own experience as a volunteer, during lockdown, during COVID, is that people really are suffering. Isolation has been a huge, huge issue. Loneliness, isolation, not connecting with other people. And you'll have what I'll say would be the usual themes, such as you could have alcoholism, mental health issues, depression, and so forth, drug abuse and unemployment and things. Like, COVID has exacerbated many of the issues our callers have. It's been exceptionally busy. I suppose part of the issue being that in this country we seem to rely a lot on charities when it comes to mental health. So when places close at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, there's no one else to talk to. Then it's when the phone calls or the emails come. And I suppose for me, it's a case of you just get a sense of perspective in your own life, talking to people, going through such difficult times, and just gratitude for what you have. You know, just to be so grateful for every day what's there.
I can imagine. And Sarah, you reach out to your community largely through music. It's a very important part of your life, and indeed your family's life as well, isn't that right?
Yeah, well, I love music and dancing, and I just find, like Tom said, this is a time of where people can often feel really isolated, and it's just, we perform in Brúta which is a centre in Rockchapel, and it sees both young and old and every age coming together, and you're coming together to perform, to play music, and most importantly to be in the presence of each other, to be in the company of each other and to have a chat. And at the moment, definitely people who used to come to Brúta every week during the summer months have really missed out on that opportunity to socialise and to connect with other people. And over the Christmas period, in the run up to Christmas, we decided that we would visit a number of these houses, and we played music and had a few dances outside their houses, just in the hope of raising spirits. And I think even if we called and didn't play anything, they would have just been equally as delighted to just tell a story themselves. And we sat back and listened. And of course it was different because they all wanted to welcome us in for a cup of tea and to sit down for the chats. But with the circumstances, it was all with the masks on and outdoors. But it didn't take from the situation because we were so happy to just be in each other's presence and company.
And the little things that we're so grateful for at the moment, really, isn't it? Cian, tell us a little bit about your involvement in the parish. And I know during lockdown you were leading prayer online at one stage as well. But tell us a little bit about what's like. You're on the parish council, I think, as well, are you?
Yeah, I have a couple of different balls in the air. So I give out communion. I'm a minister of the Eucharist. I completed the course when I was in 5th year of secondary school. There was a good few of us. We went to Ard's Scoil, which has obviously a strong Catholic ethos. So I did the course in 5th year. I'm giving out communion, obviously, pre-COVID times. We're nearly fighting for competition in our parish. We have a roster, so I'm rostered on for 3 or 4 months throughout the year. I'm also on the parish council, and this is my 1st year on it, and obviously a huge honour to be asked. Again, I think there's a certain novelty around my involvement on the parish council. I'm maybe 20 or 30 years the youngest member, but again, it's great to have a voice from the younger generation, and I think it's really important, and I'd encourage more younger people to get involved in their parishes. And I know from my parish that they are very grateful to have a young person, and I know in all the parishes around it, they'd be delighted for a younger voice. And just on the rosary thing, the parish came up with the idea of starting the rosary during the lockdown. Obviously people couldn't come together for communal prayer, so we live streamed the rosary every Sunday, and it was only supposed to be for 1 month, but it extended on, and again we did it before Christmas in November for All Souls. So while I was the only person in the church saying the rosary, it was heartwarming to know that I had family, I had friends, and I had loads of people all throughout Ireland tuning in to pray together with me.
You were texting me to make sure I tuned in every night. I mean,
yeah, I was pestering people. I was sending around a link on WhatsApp trying to create a fan base.
You're looking for so many hits, you know. Tom, if you'll bear with us here, because you've heard of Davy's toughest team, but Sarah and Ian here belong to Conway's toughest team, because they travelled with me to India a couple of years ago, and to visit a home for children, with special needs, the Flame of Hope, very famously called Flame of Hope in the north West Bengal. And I can see from the picture that is now being displayed there. What was it like for the two of you to tell people a little bit about what that experience was? The home is run by a sister who is associated with the Sisters of Charity. What was it like for you? Just a quick word, because I know what it was like. It was a very deep and profound experience for us all. And of course, I've been there a number of times, and Ian came back a second time, and you travelled on your own again a second time, Sarah, with some friends subsequently. What was it like to be part of that experience for you? Sarah, you go first.
Yeah, well, certainly it's an experience that I'm so grateful for, and only for you, Eamon, and being in touch with Cian, I certainly probably wouldn't have come across this experience in Mary Immaculate College. So I'm really grateful for the experience, and what I gained from it and what I learned, it would be impossible to sum up in a number of sentences. But I suppose it just taught me to really appreciate what we have in the now and in the present. And these children over there are so precious, and they're so content and happy with what they have. And it's just a reminder to appreciate what we have and the little things that we have in our lives every day, because we are not going to get joy from the materialistic things, and it's our connections with people, our relationships. And for them, they were so happy because they are so connected to God. It really struck me that at such a young age, their level of faith was so strong, and they took their roles and their responsibilities in preparation for Mass so seriously. And it even made me think back when I was their age and as a kid and going to Mass with our parents and with our siblings. We nearly needed an incentive sometimes to keep us away from roguery during Mass time, and to keep us quiet and sitting still, and and that would be unheard of over there, because they just are so open to receiving God's love, and they are so affectionate. And I think they're so affectionate because they're so willing to express God's love and what they love to other people. So it's just so enriching, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully being able to go back and return to India again someday.
Ian.
Yeah, and I think Tom used the word earlier on when he was talking about his work with the Samaritans, and that was perspective. Now, I had to go as far as India to get my perspective, but I think given the world that we live in, we obviously have more than enough of everything. We have enough of food, we have enough clothes, and unfortunately a lot of the time we take that for granted. And because of the world we live in, it's hard to appreciate those things all the time. But that trip in India has given me perspective on how lucky I am. Like Sarah touched on it there, these kids are the most beautiful and the best children you'll ever meet. They have very, very little, but the very little that they have, they're very grateful for. And you wouldn't know by them that they had very little, because they're so happy, and they give you the clothes off your back. They're an incredible group. I suppose from the education point of view then, what hit me was the importance of education. And unfortunately over there, the importance of education is a matter of life and death. And if they have a good education, there's a greater chance they'll get work, they'll get a job, they'll be able to look after a family. Unfortunately, if they don't have an education, it's bleak for them, and I think we can bring that message into life here in Ireland. While circumstances are different, there is people in Ireland who are living in poverty, and who I've mentioned a couple of times, who are in disadvantaged circumstances. So it's important to realise that our responsibility as educators, that we have to look after these kids, and we have to make an extra push for those who are struggling.
Yeah, it was such a powerful experience for us all, really, and a real privilege. I always call it an exchange of gifts. I mean, the wrong attitude is the one to go with the idea that we're bringing something there. We came away with so much more. that really, as you've, and just the passion with which you've both spoken about, even though it's a couple of years ago, brings that home. And then we had the great joy of welcoming 9 teachers to Limerick there last year with the Bishop of Bagdogra, the diocese in which it's in, and it was great, wasn't it, to be able to share a little bit of our own experiences here in Ireland with them. It was a great joy. We even took them to a hurling match. Isn't that right? Do you remember?
It is, yeah. And they nearly had a better concept of hurling than you had, Eamon.
In fact, what I really loved was one of the nuns, one of the sisters who was there. I asked her which team she was cheering for. She said, whichever of them is not doing so well at the time. And of course, it wasn't all work, if you like. We had an opportunity to travel up into the mountains. We're in the foothills of Nepal, of the Himalayas, actually, Nepal. That's why I referred it earlier to as Conway's toughest team. As you can see from this photograph here, we are at actually the highest point in India, a place called Sandakpur. And we trekked up there along with 2 of the other students, whom you also see in the photographs there. And it was really, I mean, again, God's own place, really, wasn't it, to be able to look at those mountains. And of course, the mountain most in the background there of the shot is Kanchenjunga, which is sacred to the Buddhist religion, and you're not allowed to climb it, actually, because it is so sacred. So yeah, it was wonderful, wasn't it, to experience the other religions there. We're at the cusp of Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and indeed Christianity, and to see the mutual respect there is for all those religions. So it was a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful experience for us. We're coming to kind of a close, really. We could continue talking, but we do try to keep these sessions, these conversations, reasonably tight time-wise. But it's been a tremendously, I think, interesting and enriching evening for us to be, to share these kind of thoughts and these insights with one another. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be here.
Thanks,
to thank our audience who have joined us, and I hope that you found it interesting. Again, it's really just about opening up conversations about faith, having in a sense, the confidence, the courage to talk about our faith with one another, enrich one another when we do so. And really, really grateful that we have this conversation this evening. Next week, we're going to shift, in a sense, to a different kind of a context. We're going to talk to Senator Ronan Mullen and Baroness Nuala Lone about what it's like to be, in a sense, committed to one's Catholic faith in public life, and the struggles that one can have, the challenges, the opportunities, indeed the joys of that as well. So we look forward very much to being joined by Nuala Lone and Ronan Mullen next week. Cian, you agreed to bring us to a happy conclusion this evening by leading us in a prayer. So over to you,
Yeah.
Cian.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, please give us the strength to make it through these days. I don't know what you're up to or what is going to happen, but you do. Please help us trust in you in all things, even when the road isn't easy or clear. We make these prayers through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
Thanks, Eamon.
Thanks, Eamon.